And if it gets 1,000 likes, I'll ride it across the country.
Will you?
Yes, I will.
There's your target. Right then, Dave, I've got to go and buy a second-hand bike for a video at the end of the week.
Okay.
And to be honest, it's stressing me out a bit because
Stressing you out because you don't really know what you're going to get.
you hear so many horror stories of people buying absolute duds. Obviously, it needs to work. I don't want to spend a fortune replacing components. And generally, I just feel it's a bit safer going and buying one from a shop.
I know, but what if I told you could get like a bike like this for less than a quarter of the price? It was a fifth of the price of a new one. A sixth of the price of the new one.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
So what was it, about 100 quid?
No, this was £50.
50?
50 of your English pounds.
For a fully functioning bike?
I mean,
well, it needs some air.
I wouldn't go that far. Not quite fully functioning, but if we have a look at the things that you need to look at when you're buying a second-hand bike, we'll go through all the parts. We can have a quick look around this one, and I can show you what I saw and how much it's going to cost to fix.
Yeah.
And that you factor all that into the cost. So where have you been looking for your bike, Jamie?
So far, I've been looking on Facebook Marketplace. There seems to be some good deals on there.
Yeah,
and just looking locally, really.
That's where I got this from. That's a really good option. Another good option is second-hand bike workshop. There's normally one in most towns, and that's good because you can see a range of bikes. They'll give you advice, and also they'll have all had a service before they go out, so there's less stuff to look for. If you are going to go on Facebook Marketplace, if you're a bit more confident technically, and I'd say that you were, Jamie, then that's a really good place to go because you can get a really good bargain. But wherever you find your bike, you always want to see it in person before you hand over any cash. If you don't trust yourself to know enough about the bike to spot problems, then you can take a technically minded friend to suck their teeth at the right points in the conversation.
You're coming with me on Friday, are you?
So what details you get in the listing will vary. I'd always advise to steer clear of any listing that uses any kind of stock image because it's better to have pictures of the bike you're buying. But actually, I broke that rule because this bike had a picture from our road.cc review as its main image. But you can always ask for more pics, and Joss, who was selling this, was happy to send some, and that interaction was really useful because it gives you a feel for what a person's like. And he seemed like a genuine chap. He'd been using it to ride to work, and then he wasn't riding to work on it anymore, so he was selling it. And when you go to see the bike, wear clothes that you can ride in. It doesn't have to be lycra, but not a flowy dress.
Yeah.
And I always take a few tools. As a minimum, I would take a pump, I would take a set of Allen keys, and I would take a chain checker. Now, some people might not have one of these, but they're very handy, very cheap. So yeah, it's worth slinging that in the boot. And it's also worth slinging in a work stand if you've got one, because it makes it much easier to check the bike over. So in this vid, we're going to do a basic rundown of what you should check. Now, a second-hand bike is never going to be perfect, but if you think you're going to need to replace stuff, then the costs can mount up, especially on a bike like this, which isn't expensive to begin with. The most likely things you're going to need to shell out for are new tyres, a new chain, new brake pads, and new cables. So give yourself an idea of how much those things cost on a bike that you're going to go and see before you go and see it. Now, it doesn't matter how great a deal a bike is if it's too big or it's too small. So first thing, undo the seat post clamp and check that the seat post moves freely in the frame. Now, if it's seized, then you'll be facing a lot of work to get it unstuck, and you might ruin the frame trying. So just don't buy it. Then adjust the seat post so that you're sat on the saddle and you're on your tippy toes, and make sure that the seat post isn't above its minimum insertion mark at that point. And then come off the saddle, check the standover height to make sure you've got enough space when you're standing on the ground. And if you have, then that's an indication that the bike's a good size. Next, you're going to want to check the integrity of the frame and the fork. Has it been crashed? Is it bent? Give it a look over from all angles. Are there any obvious dents or cracks? What's the overall condition of the bike like? Put the front brake on and try to rock the bike back and forwards, and that will tell you if there's any play in the headset. If it's loose, it could be damaged, and also water may have got in. Next, check for crash damage. Turn the handlebars through their full range, and there shouldn't be any tight spots. And also check the top tube where the bars hit the frame. Check if there isn't any damage there. That's a sign of a crash. Check the angle of the fork, and also check under the down tube for any cracking or paint damage there. That's a classic symptom of a crash. And if there's anything wrong at the front end, just walk away.
Might sound like a stupid question. How am I going to check the angle of the fork?
Two things. I mean, firstly, visually check it, make sure it's not cracked at the top, and make sure the angle looks like it should. And also, when you test ride it, you'll be able to feel if it's been bent backwards, then it'll feel really, really twitchy.
So I'll be able to tell if it's rear-ended a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Check the frame number next. That's usually under the bottom bracket, and if there's any sign that's been tampered with or filed off, that's a pretty sure sign that the bike's been stolen, so don't buy it. You can run a frame number through a bike database as well, like the bike register, see if there are any details on the bike. Okay, next, check the drivetrain, check to make sure that everything turns around and the gears move around. This one seems to be mostly okay. I say mostly okay. Get your chain checker and check the chain wear, because if the chain wear is above about 0.75%, then you're going to need a new chain. If it's above 1%, then you're probably going to need a new cassette as well. And at that point, cost starts mounting up.
Now this one, I think it's fair to say the chain's not in the best nick. It's got some rusty patches.
It's got some rusty bits, it's got some stiff links, but actually the chain wear is not bad. It's about 0.75, which is the point on a 8-speed system where you change it anyway.
Yeah.
And a new chain's about a tenner.
Yeah. So even though it's not in the best nick, you've thought, cheap bike, I'm going to go for it anyway.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough.
And also on this bike, the cables are a bit rusty. This one's a bit kinked. It's actually okay, but while I was doing that work, I'd probably change it out.
You've got yourself a project.
Yes. The other thing on the drivetrain that's good to check is the bottom bracket. So check that it runs freely, and also try and move the pedals from side to side. Check there's no play in the bearings.
Yep.
This is a cheap square taper bottom bracket, but it seems to be absolutely fine.
Better than mine at home. Better than yours, actually.
Now this bike does not have a replaceable gear hanger.
Yeah.
So if it was bent, I'd need to bend it back.
And
there's only so many times you can do that on an alloy frame before it will fall off. So a good basic check to see if your mech hanger's straight is to check that the gears are indexed all the way through the cassette. So here, right from the bottom to the top, things look pretty good.
Yeah.
So that suggests that it's hanging straight and is working properly.
So if it's indexed at one end and then nowhere, and then miles out at the other, that's probably a mech hanger being bent.
Yeah, or that's also quite a common sign of a chain being really worn as well. Okay, let's check the wheels next. If you stand behind that one, I'm going to give it a spin. See what you think about the lateral trueness of that.
It seems to be going around pretty straight.
Yeah, it's not bad. There's a bit of play in it, and that's normal for an old bike, but the bearings seem fine. The spoke tension, if you check those, they all seem pretty good. That'll be easy to true. The only thing is, it's a good idea to check the spoke nipples to make sure they're not seized. These ones look okay, but if you've got a spoke key with you, you can check a few of them to make sure they're all right. The other thing to do is to check the lateral play again, pull the rim from side to side, and then you can see this one's nice and tight. If they're loose, cheap bike like this has normally got cup and cone bearings, so you can tighten them up, but again, if they're loose, they might have been damaged. Okay, quite often when you're looking at a bike that's been stored for a while, the tyres will be flat, so the first thing to do is get your pump, check they hold some air, and this one seems to be fine, so that's good. Then it's a good idea to check the tread. You can see that this has got plenty of tread left on it. Check the sidewalls for cracks. If it's been left out in the sun, then the rubber degrades quite quickly. And also check the point, if you can find it where the bike was sat on its flat tyre, to make sure it's not cracked there. But this one, it's got a couple of little cracks in, but for the time being, it's absolutely fine.
Because tyres are pretty expensive to replace.
They're expensive to replace, but also easy to replace.
Yeah.
And you know, they're a consumable item, so they will eventually wear out.
But if I'm going to go and see an expensive road bike, it's quite easily got £50 of pop tyres on it.
Yep.
Maybe I can haggle that off of.
So it's worth factoring that in if you think they're too worn. Yeah. Brakes next. Rim brakes are fairly easy to check for pad wear. You can see these ones have worn down quite a lot, and those are going to need to be replaced. But again, that's a consumable item, and they're not very expensive. I can probably get a set of 4 for less than a tenner.
It does give you a pretty good indication of how many miles the bike's done, though, and in what sort of conditions as well.
Absolutely, and also while you're checking that, you can check the rim wear on a rim brake bike.
How would I do that?
When it wears, it becomes more concave. So you can run a straight line against the edge to check how concave it is. This one has got a bit of wear, I can feel it. I can feel a little ridge in it, but actually there's still plenty of material there. Some rims have a wear indicator, which is a little hole, and when it disappears, it's time to replace the rim. I would have thought that these cheap rims don't have that, so you're just kind of going on sight and feel, really. Also check the cables. The front one on this works pretty well. Back one's a little bit stiff, so there's probably a bit of rust and water in the system. And if it's a hydraulic brake, look for any obvious signs of a hydraulic leak and check the lever to make sure that you're not going to need to bleed the whole thing.
So I guess it's going to pull to the bar if it needs bleeding.
If you've got disc brakes, then checking the disc pad wear can be a lot more difficult than checking for rim brakes because they're more hidden, there's not a lot to see. You should be able to look down and see if there's still some pad material left on the backing plate, but I would always assume that you're going to need to replace those pads and factor that into the cost. The only other thing really is the finishing kit. Here we've got bar tape that is fine, saddle that looks okay. Check if you've got anything extra with the bike as well. So here I'm getting some Shimano pedals, I'm getting a mudguard and a bottle cage, all good. I don't use SPDSL, so I can probably flog them for a tenner, and that will give me some budget to buy a new chain, for example.
If you can get them off.
If I can get them off. We'll check in a minute.
Now, you always want to ride a second-hand bike before you buy it, and the test ride can be a bit of a dance, especially with a more expensive bike. On the one hand, the seller's going to be worried that you're going to ride away without paying. On the other hand, you don't want to hand over any money before you've tried it. In those circumstances, it's often useful to have somebody with you who can hold the money while you go on a test ride, or who can offer to give something like a driver's license, which doesn't have any value to the person that's selling, but also is a faff for you to replace. So it's reasonable insurance that you'll come back. For a bike like this, it's less than £100, you're probably not getting scams. So it's just a case of getting on the bike, checking that it fits you, that the fit is how you want it, that the gears work, that the brakes work, that it rides like you expect it to. And then once you've done that, you'll be ready to make your decision.
Okay, so I've kicked the tyres of this one.
Yeah.
And I decided it was a good deal. So it was 50 quid. They retail for £300 new. Currently they're down to 250, so they're in the sale, but they don't have them in my size. Extra large. And I reckon I'm going to swap the chain out. I'm going to get a new gear cable, new brake cable, and new brake pads. And all in all, probably about 20 quid's worth of parts. I'm not going to get the most expensive ones. I don't need the pedals, I can sell them for a tenner.
Yeah.
Take that off, and that's 60 quid for a bike that's pretty serviceable, I'd say.
That does sound like a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can do the same later on in the week. Let us know what you think of Dave's new purchase down in the comment section below, as well as any of your second-hand bike buying tips. If you've enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for lots more bike stuff. We'll see you next time.